Welcome to the Israel Guys, where we believe that in a world of anti-Israel propaganda and Jew hatred, you should always be connected to the land and people of Israel. Guys, very happy to be back with you live from the Mount of Blessing deep in the heart of Samaria. The world likes to call it the West Bank, but we call it the biblical heartland of Israel. And we have Rabbi Aryeh Abramowitz from Judea. So we're representing both sides of Jerusalem here. I'm Luke Hilton here with Nate Waller. We are missing Jeremy Gimpel and Joshua Waller. You can drop a line in the comments if you guys missed them this week. Something about the Prime Minister's office and a panel and something.
What's the panel about?
Something very insignificant, I think. I'm not sure.
Or you can drop in the comments what are we looking at? Are we looking at a future where I won't have religious freedom in America? I will be a second-class citizen as a non-Muslim.
Yeah, but it's something that it can't be that significant because otherwise, Luke, you and I would be there too.
Yes, or they wouldn't have canceled being on this podcast just to be at the Prime Minister's office or something.
Right. So
anyways,
we'll hear about that soon.
Guys, make sure you're subscribed and you're following along wherever you're watching or listening. We'd love to hear from you. Ari reads every single comment. Make sure you remember that, guys. So
I really do. I read a lot of them. I find them super interesting. And also,
by the way, every time you say something positive, he screenshots it, highlights it, and sends it to the rest of us. So overview of the news, we're looking at the news and lots of big stories, nothing like major earth, there's not like World War III breaks out this week, although by the time you watch this, the chances are always very high of something like that happening because, we record probably 12 hours before this podcast goes live. But the biggest stories we're looking at today is obviously New York City elects their first socialist, Marxist, communist mayor. Muslim mayor. And I think it's important to talk about that. He was voted Employee of the Month by Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is the Aliyah organization. Obviously, that's a joke, but it is a meme going around the internet. You've probably seen it. And I think another thing important to talk about is Ben Shapiro basically declares war on the woke right. I think he's just about had enough. And we need to talk about what that means for Israel and the Jewish people.
It's funny that you would phrase it like that. The Ben Shapiro has declared war because I don't know if he would say that. Well, I've been listening to him, waiting. Ben, are you hearing what they're saying about Israel, about Jews, and about you, Ben Shapiro? Are you listening to what they're saying about you? And he's going into the same old, conservative things about Mamdani. And I'm like, this needs to be responded to. And then finally he did. Yeah. Finally he responded to it. And I think in a pretty good way, although I don't think it really penetrated to the depth of the issue. But I think as far as like a diaspora American Jew can necessarily do, I think he did a pretty good job of exposing a certain dimension of things.
In today's podcast, we're talking a lot about redemption and the land of Israel being restored, the Jewish people, and aligning ourselves with the God of Abraham. I've come to believe that a really good way to proudly showcase your stance with the God of Abraham is with these symbols, the Mashiach temple patches. We've sold thousands and thousands and thousands of these. You guys know these have been worn by IDF soldiers for the last 2 years across the land of Israel on all the borders and all the war fronts. And it's such an amazing strong symbol of our shared belief in the God of Abraham and the coming redemption for the world that we're actually expanding our line of products with the Mashiach temple symbols on them. So we still have the patches, and we actually have a really cool new product. It's a lapel pin. And if you wear a suit jacket or even a dress shirt or something, this is a really cool way to be able to integrate this symbol there. And if you buy the patch and the pin together, and we'll put a link in the description below for the bundle of both of these, you get 20% off. So get the patch, get the pin, showcase your alignment with the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob with the Mashiach temple patch and pin. Get 20% off. We'll put the link in the description below. Back to today's podcast. And obviously, if you haven't seen it yet, you need to watch the 40-minute video that Ben Shapiro put out, basically addressing mainly three people. He addressed first Nick Fuentes, who is the leader of the Groyper movement, whoever they are. It's basically a white nationalist, racist, Jew hater, hates everything else normal. And he addressed Tucker Carlson, one of the most powerful right-wing commentators in today's time, but who in the last 2 years has drastically shifted to what I would call the woke right ideology. And he's taking millions of people along with him. And he also addressed Candace Owens a little bit. And I was wondering why he didn't address her more. But then I realized maybe it's because no one's actually taking her very seriously, although she still has a massive audience. But maybe it's because she's so incredibly deranged that it's not even worth addressing like the preposterous claims. Like, she claims certain people are aliens or not even human, or, just like wild stuff, right?
But at the same time, he made the same mistake with Nick Fuentes, where he wouldn't talk about him, he wouldn't refer to him, he wouldn't debate him. And the truth is that when I saw Nick Fuentes, and I saw him a long time ago, I said, when you look at the scheme of history, sometimes a voice that is so unadulterated and unwavering and clear, although it may be super sidelined way outside the Overton window, if they stay the course, when the winds start shifting and the position of society, what the world is, the circumstances of the world are shifting, then there they are waiting and ready. And I look at him and I'm like, he has stayed the course. He has never compromised on the vicious, disgusting, vile nature of his message, but also the elements that are less vicious and disgusting and vile. But at the same time, those are the more dangerous ones, right?
Right.
Because that's where he sounds more reasonable. And I'm watching him compared to how he was, and I'm watching him now. I'm like, wow, he's matured. He's Nick Fuentes. He is now really positioning himself, marketing himself, moderating himself, sounding more reasonable. And that's wise because he wants to accomplish this agenda. And that's the way to do it. And Tucker Carlson, as Ben Shapiro really accurately explained, is laundering and whitewashing this guy and bringing him into the Overton window, into the discussion. A guy you would look at and say, like, how is that possible? He's like literally advocating murdering Jews.
Right.
It's always interesting. I was just listening to him this morning on the way here. The same people that
You were listening to Nick Fuentes on the way here?
On the way here. Yeah, I was listening to him. First of all, he's super entertaining, and that's an important thing. He's really like a very funny guy. But, when on the one hand, it's always the Holocaust deniers that are like, no, 6 million cookies can't be cooked in 4 ovens.
I saw that, yeah.
This like disgusting repulsiveness and saying that Holocaust couldn't have possibly happened while advocating for a Holocaust, while saying Hitler was super cool. It's always the Holocaust deniers that would reenact the Holocaust the most.
Just a quick snippet when you mentioned 6 million Jews, and I saw that same clip by Nick Fuentes. I saw just yesterday that Yad Vashem has now identified, I believe it's 5 million of the 6 million Jews that were killed in the Holocaust. They have identified the names and the people on record now.
Wow.
Right. Well, not that will matter.
I think that the whole thing, I think Ben Shapiro did a great job with it in identifying the real issue here is that these guys like Tucker are bringing up they're bringing these guys that were not acceptable, like their content of, you couldn't talk about these racist things or stuff, bigotry against women, like this kind of stuff was not acceptable on the internet. Like that was, in the conservative movement, that was not acceptable. But now he's normalizing this stuff. He's saying that this guy, Nick Fuentes, okay, he's got some cool stuff, go listen to him. No, this guy's a jerk.
He apologized to him on his show.
This guy is a jerk.
He said, I'm sorry for calling you gay, I think.
Right.
Nick Fuentes was playing a video where he's shooting at some yarmulke kid running away. I mean, we could start talking about how vile and repulsive and disgusting it is.
But what happens is now Tucker Carlson is making this normal and making this acceptable to the average, the public, whoever. This is okay to be okay with murdering Jews. It's okay to be putting down women. It's okay to rape women. It's okay to do these atrocious things, really Hamas type things. This is okay now. Right. And he's making this public opinion. Well,
I think this is a good indicator of who Tucker Carlson is today. And I think you saw this story first, Nate. So literally yesterday, was it yesterday or night before? Basically, when we woke up in Israel yesterday, we found out that Mamdani's been elected, right?
Oh, right.
As mayor of New York City. Yesterday, Tucker's headline show is, if Lindsey Graham gets reelected to the U.S. Senate, there's no reason to have a Republican Party. Here's how to stop it. That's Tucker Carlson's headline show.
Right.
It's not New York City just elected the most dangerous mayor in the history of the United States, or the Democratic Party is finished or doomed. Here's how to stop that from happening. It's no, Lindsey Graham is the most dangerous person in the Republican Party, and here's what we have to do to stop it.
Right. That's why Tucker is so dangerous, because I was just watching Megyn Kelly and Matt Walsh have a discussion about Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro. And they're like, it's such a shame to have these internal fights. They're both friends of ours. And, it's like this one issue is just dividing them so much and dividing and ripping the party so much. We need the party to come together. Why would you? And Matt Walsh is like, I've never cared about Israel. It's never been an important thing to me.
You'll find the same sentiment. And the sentiment is this: I don't care. Like, I just don't care about this foreign country. I really don't. And that's why the other thing, if you go back and you go check my record, what have I said about Israel? What you'll find is I've said very little about it. That's the other thing.
And I feel like Tucker Carlson and Ben Shapiro are both watching this and deep down there and saying, this isn't just about Israel. Israel is the underlying position that is everything else. It's all included in the whole world view, which is why he wouldn't want to go against Mamdani, because Mamdani hates Israel. Mamdani does not believe that the nation of Israel has a right to be in the land of Israel. He doesn't want to see Jews settling Judea, and neither does Tucker Carlson on the fundamental theological God level. And that's what runs Tucker Carlson's entire system, is that. So Mamdani and all of that can go to the side, because the same underlying replacement theology is motivating both of them. And so I think that's really where we need to, it's Israel. Jerusalem is the axis of human history, of everything that's happening right now. And Megyn Kelly and Matt Walsh don't see it. They just see it as a one-off issue.
Right.
And so they don't see go ahead.
Well, no, this is kind of my question. Maybe both of you guys can weigh in on this, because we're seeing a shift and a split in the conservative movement in ideology in the United States, right? One side is saying we have to come together. We have to be in unity. We can't attack each other. We can't have internal fighting. The other side saying we have to stand for what's right. And I think one interesting thing that Ben Shapiro did in his show is he called out the Heritage Foundation for putting out a statement unequivocally endorsing Tucker Carlson and saying there's no way we would ever cancel Tucker Carlson or say anything he did wrong.
Yeah,
but he prefaced it by saying the Heritage Foundation, including their founder, is one of my longest friends and the first organization that ever supported me. This is Ben Shapiro. And he's basically saying, I'm still friends with them. They're amazing people. They've done amazing things. First people that ever support me. But what they just did was wrong. And I'm willing to stand for what's right and call them out for it.
Right. And when you listen, I remember when Kanye West was coming out and talking about Hitler being great and whatever, and Candace Owens was like, he's my friend and I'm loyal to my friends. I heard Matt Walsh say the same thing. My main thing is loyalty to a friend. I'll never be treacherous and turn against a friend. And I'm listening to the Heritage Foundation. Not only did they say everything Tucker said so far, we'll stand with him, but into the future, we'll be with him.
Yeah.
Jeremy, he's my best friend. I'm not ultimately loyal to Jeremy. I'm ultimately loyal to God.
That's right.
And to truth. Right. And if Jeremy turns against that, then I am against Jeremy. So there needs to be an understanding that real loyalty has to be to God and to truth and not to man, because then all of a sudden you're transcending your commitment to God and to the commitment to flesh and blood. And that's a big, Matt Walsh kept saying that also. Where's this from? It needs to be first and foremost to God. That's one point I want to, but when I'm listening to Tucker Carlson, he issued an apology. Did you hear this apology?
Which one? Isn't his favorite thing to do is
he goes off
now?
And he's saying that the Christian Zionism
is
a woke mind virus.
Well,
and
he hates him more than anybody else.
More than anyone else. And then he went on to Dave Smith's show.
Saw this, yeah.
And he issued an apology. Let's just play a piece of that right here.
But I just want to say at the outset, because this has been weighing on me, I did say something that I really regret saying that I didn't fully mean. I said it because I was mad, which is always when I say things I don't really mean. When I get pissed, my wife's always telling me this. I was snippy and I didn't explain it. And I said something to the effect of, I despise Christian Zionists. And I'm just sorry that I said that, because I don't. I'm mad at a certain kind of thinking. Some of the nicest people I know are Christian Zionists, actually. If you're in a car crash, they would save you. If you needed someone to watch your bank account, they wouldn't steal from you. They're like really good people and sweet people. I want to be very specific quickly about what I was talking about. In at least a couple of different occasions, the Israeli government bombed churches in Gaza and killed a bunch of Christians. And not an accident, of course. I mean, this is like a very high-tech military with precision. I mean, they, gave pagers with bombs in them to Hezbollah. So like this is a military, a national defense institution that understands what it's doing. They didn't accidentally bomb 2 churches and kill these Christians, and they never apologized for it. And so I brought this up with a couple of Christian leaders, and including the Speaker of the House, and said, like, what is, we're paying to bomb churches? Because we're paying for it. And the response I got from every single one was, the Bible commands us to support Israel. And I said, so Jesus is telling us that we need to get on board with murdering Christians? Is that what you're saying? And they basically were just like, shut up. And I found that extremely, as a Christian, extremely upsetting.
That this whole thing about the churches, bombing churches, Christian Zionists, this whole deal, this is just insanity. Tucker's not talking about Russia bombing churches. There was 600 churches that were bombed in 2022 alone in Ukraine from the Russian attacks. It was 2022 or 2023. I don't remember where the report was, but there was 600 churches bombed by Russia. But Russia, their economy's good, right? Tucker does this whole thing in Russia. He loves Russia, but there was 600 places of worship. 600 places of worship were bombed. Most of those were churches. Some of those were synagogues. Some of those were other places, but 600 places of worship are bombed. Now you come into Israel, you have a terrorist organization with, and I'm sorry, Tucker, these Christians support Hamas. That's straight Hamas. Or our Hamas. This is a place you are dealing with people that are not saving hostages, people that are not standing up for human rights. These Christians, what you're calling a Christian, these guys are murderers.
I
These
remember
guys are
seeing this
supporting
in Bethlehem, where Arafat and in the days or earlier days of the PLO, the 80% of Bethlehem was Christians.
Right.
20% were Muslims. Yeah, and after Oslo, when the Palestinian Authority took over, they went into the church and they were shooting at IDF out of the church. And if the church shoots back, then Tucker Carlson types scream, Israel shooting churches, as there are terrorists smearing feces inside the church, desecrating the church, shooting a priest in the church, shooting Israel from out of the church. And then Tucker Carlson, an eager cooperative with these terrorists, is saying, oh, Israel's shooting at the church. And what happened afterwards? Bethlehem became, within Muslim. Just a couple years, 20% Christian, 80% Muslim, and the Christians fled in fear. Tucker Carlson doesn't say a word, not a word. He needs to make this up about Israel shooting churches, Israel committing genocide. I just saw him say, watch this clip. He's talking about the beeper attack, which was possibly the most precise attack in any warfare in all of history. Look at what he says here.
The truth is, they are openly pro-violence. So how in the world could you justify killing tens of thousands of children, or justify a pager attack, which is an act of terrorism, where you indiscriminately blowing people's genitals off? You don't know who's holding the pager, and you're celebrating it. What are you celebrating? You're celebrating violence. And they celebrate violence day after day. That's where their foreign policy comes from. That's what their worldview is.
Do you hear what he says there? Who knows who has pagers in their hand? Who knows? Nobody nowadays has pagers in their hands. That's why Israel did this, because they knew that shipment of pagers was being sent to Hezbollah because they couldn't use phones to communicate with each other. So it was literally only Hezbollah operatives who purchased and distributed those pagers for internal communications. And he's saying, oh, that's another act of genocide. This is where voices like Tucker Carlson really lose me, because I don't mind, again, when I was on Louis Theroux and I was called an extremist, I don't mind being called an extremist for things that I may be extreme about, because I don't think there's anything inherently wrong with being extreme if it's extremely dedicated to truth and kindness and compassion and good. But if you start twisting and lying in order to accomplish your goal, well, then that is not blessed anymore. You can't take any refuge in saying that you're a speaker of truth. And he knows that Israel's not committing genocide. If Israel was committing genocide, we would have had hundreds of our best killed while trying to go in. The war would have been over in 15 minutes. 15 minutes. The war would have been over if we wanted to commit genocide, and not one Jew would have died. And they know that, and they still advocate and propagate these lies.
I think backing up just a little bit, you live in Gush Etzion. The Gush Etzion massacre that happened in 1948, who did that? Christians. That was done by Christian Arabs the most of the Christians in the Gush Etzion region, in that area, that did that massacre were Arab Christians.
I did not know that.
These people that Tucker is defending, massacred Jews that were returning to their land just like the prophet said they would. So as a Christian Zionist, this gets me fired up, because as a Christian Zionist, sorry, Tucker, the Bible says God made a covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and says, this is the land I'm going to give to you and your descendants forever. If God is not a covenant-keeping God, then I'm in trouble. And the world's in trouble, because the God that created the world, if he can't keep a covenant, then that rainbow doesn't mean anything. And the Jews returning home doesn't mean anything. The Jews coming back, just like he said they would, doesn't mean anything today. And my faith doesn't mean anything today. But if I believe that God's a covenant-keeping God, and God keeps covenants, and I know he does, and it's proven because the Jewish people are coming home. And so Christians that stand against that, I'm sorry, you don't believe the Bible.
Right.
That's just that's the fact.
God says in the book of Genesis, and I will establish my covenant between me and you and your descendants after you throughout their generations for an everlasting covenant. In Psalms, for the Lord will not cast off his people, nor will he forsake his inheritance. We have here in Jeremiah, thus says the Lord, who gives the sun for light by day. If these laws depart from me before me, then also the seed of Israel shall cease from being a nation before me forever. I mean, he's calling God a liar. But this this refrain that he says, as a Christian, innocence should not be killed. It's almost like I keep thinking, Tucker, thou doth protest too much. Right? When you look throughout history, it's Tucker's strain of Christianity that did how many pogroms?
That's right.
And the Inquisitions.
That's right.
And the Cossacks. Christianity has killed more innocents than probably, I imagine, even Islam has done up until now.
That's the debate. Has Christian killed more, or has Islam killed more?
Right. Well, that's the debate. And that's why it's actually these Christian Zionists that have the dedication to God and to truth, they're really on a very foundational level, repenting for their forefathers, bringing rectification and fixing to the world by deviating from that path of Christianity that forked at one point with Constantine and paganism and started embracing and infusing that within Christianity from what was before a very Jewish movement, right? And so the Christianity right now is in the times of refinement, where they're going to decide, are they taking that Esau, Constantine replacement pagan directive, or are they going back to the roots and embracing the God of Israel and the nation of Israel and the land of Israel, even if that means that they stand alone with them against the rest of the world?
That's right.
So I think it's interesting that we have, and I would encourage everybody to go watch Ben Shapiro. I think it's interesting that, one, he's Jewish. He has built his career on like an America First, very conservative ideology. And now he's finding that he's been kind of backed into a corner to take the fight to his own people, his own party, to the right-wing woke ideology that is now spreading like a cancer across America. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know what the end result is going to be for someone like Ben Shapiro, who's standing alone, and he's already Jewish, Orthodox Jewish. But then what's the answer for the Jewish community in America and for Bible, Christian Zionists who believe in the Bible? And I think before we answer that, I think we should move on to the new socialist mayor of New York, because I think this plays right into the same question.
Same answer. What's happening?
Well, and I think even Tucker, I remember watching his speech at Turning Point last year. He kind of did a half endorsement for Mamdani. Like, it wasn't like, he was like, I kind of agree with the guy. He's like, I don't support his socialist stuff, but I kind of agree with him. Like, and I'm like, what do you, like, you're actually giving this guy some credibility? This is insanity.
Well, now he's attacking Lindsey Graham over Mamdani the day he's elected, right?
Well, my heart is really hurting for Ben Shapiro and for a lot of these Jews who really believed with their hearts that they were right-wing conservative Republican Americans and that America would stand with them. And they really conflated their identity with conservatism in the American party. And what Ben Shapiro is now realizing is that despite all of that, he already knew Jews are not left-wing Democrat liberals, but now also we're not right-wing conservative Republicans. We're not either. We're Jews. And the more we conflate our identity, the more that illusion is going to be shattered right before our eyes. And it's painful to see someone so well-intentioned have this foundational belief of his being shattered in front of his eyes. And there's nothing that he can say that's going to change it. The winds of history are shifting. And, it says in the Bible, Ma'aseh avot siman lebanim. The acts of the fathers are a sign for the children. And when you look back at Laban, and back at Pharaoh, you see that there was a point in time, it says here, and Jacob saw the face of Laban, and behold, it was not towards him as it had been yesterday and the day before, and he realized that it was time to leave. What was Laban saying to Jacob? He said, the daughters are my daughters, the children are my children, the flocks are my flocks, and all you see is mine. Even though we know that Jacob came and he made Laban very, very, very wealthy. He worked day and night, sleepless nights, and got cheated and cheated and cheated and worked and worked and worked, and not only established wealth for himself, but also, because capitalism actually works that way, it's not at the expense of anyone else, made Laban very wealthy. And then at the end, Laban said, no, all of that you took from me. You took from me, Jews. You took that from me. And then we see Pharaoh, when the Jews turned against, when they turned against the Jews, says this was his rationale. Chapter 1, verse 10 and 11 of the book of Exodus. I urge everyone to open it and look at it and see how exactly this is paralleling right now. He said, behold, the people of the children of Israel are more mightier than we. Come, let us deal wisely with them. They're a political threat to us. Right? Next verse, lest when the war breaks out, they will also join our enemies and fight against us. They have dual loyalty.
Well, I just saw a report, and I didn't put it in my notes, but more or less this guy, just random person on Twitter, was he pulled, and I don't know if the numbers are real, but he pulled the numbers of Jews in America who are enlisting in the American military, and I forget the number, but it was like 1%. And then he pulled the numbers of supposed American billionaires, and he said Jews make up like 40% of the America's billionaires. And he's like, basically, that was his, like, this is why Jews are the problem. Jews have all the money. Jews refuse to serve in our military, blah, 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 blah. And it made me think of that exact same thing.
Yeah. Jews are controlling. Jews are in charge of Facebook. Jews are in charge of Instagram. Jews are in charge of all of the media companies. Jews or Jew-friendly people. And I'm watching these clip after clip after clip on Instagram and on Facebook and on these things that he's decrying. The Jews are controlling it. Meanwhile, my whole feed is Nick Fuentes. Yeah. So that's sort of ironic.
So I want to talk about, because I thought it was like pretty common sense that this guy Mamdani is like pretty dangerous for America in New York City. I thought everybody agreed on that. Opened the Jerusalem Post this morning, and the first article, the only article I saw about him being elected, was a very like soft, like, Mamdani, a lot of people think he's dangerous, but he now has the opportunity to embrace the Jewish community and the Muslim community and the Christian community and bring everyone together. And it remains to be seen, what is he going to do as mayor? So I thought, I guess it's not as well known or agreed upon as I thought. So we should give just a couple of little facts about him, things that he's said, and you guys can add your own here. He said that if Bibi Netanyahu were to come to New York City while he's mayor, which is very likely because Bibi Netanyahu goes to New York City quite frequently. Like, that's where the United Nations, he was just there speaking at the United Nations recently. He would make sure he's arrested. Now, I don't know if he has the power to do that as mayor, and I feel like probably the federal government would step in to stop something like that. And it's just like ludicrous, like absolutely ludicrous. But that's what he said. In 2023, Mamdani said, quote, "We have to make clear that when the boot of the NYPD is on your neck, it's been laced by the IDF. When talking about the Hamas-Gaza war, reportedly he said, why does everyone talk about Hamas-run hospitals, but they never talk about U.S.-backed IDF? He has supported BDS. He's unequivocally refused to condemn phrases like globalize the Intifada. This guy is a Jew hater, an anti-Semitite, anti-Israel hater, and he just won. He just became mayor of New York City, which is the most, you could argue, the most significant city in America, right? And from what I saw, won like 33% of the Jewish vote.
Yeah, I actually saw, it's just coming to mind, a post by Shabbos Kestenbaum, who's one of Nick Fuentes' fun people to hit on.
He's like a younger version of Ben Shapiro.
Yeah, and they have the same illusion. And he said, we are here to fight. We're going to stay here and fight for the most beautiful city in the world. And I thought, whoa. The most beautiful city in the world, Shabbos Kestenbaum, for that to come out of the mouth of a Jew and it not be referring to Jerusalem shows what this whole thing is about. And it reminded me of the Association of German National Jews and so many Jews in pre-Holocaust Germany, which was a republic, which was voted in, and they were saying Germany is our Israel and Berlin is our Jerusalem. They really so strongly identified as Jews that they believed that supporting Hitler would save Jews from anti-Semitism. 30% of Mamdani's voters were Jews.
Yes,
right? And they voted 30% of them. To the truth is, I'm so jaded on this. I was like, wow, it's only 30%? I would have thought it was more.
Yeah.
More Jews than that. But they believe somehow that by them coming and advocating for him and, pushing his agenda and pushing his name, that they will be somehow exempted from his plans against the Jews of New York and against Jewry. He wants to globalize the Intifada, that they will somehow dodge that bullet and prove their loyalty to them. And that is never the case. They're simply his useful idiots during the campaign. Yeah. And they arguably, I don't know the numbers, but they definitely helped get him elected in a very significant way.
We'll get back to the podcast in just a second, but I did want to just remind you guys that everything at the Israel Guys is completely free. We're a public platform. We put everything out on as many channels as we possibly can. We want to keep it that way, but we do rely on support from people just like you. If you're someone who listens or watches on a regular basis and you consume our content, I would ask that you consider becoming a monthly donor, and you can join our monthly donor program. We've actually really expanded this program in the last few months, and I'm very, very excited about it now. We have a Telegram group that you'll automatically get an invitation to join after you sign up. And on the Telegram group, multiple times a week, we're putting photos, video updates, behind the scenes of our volunteer work in Israel. We're putting exclusive content. We actually have a once a month exclusive live stream with our team here from Israel. We have a photo of the month, exclusive discounts from the store. It's a really cool way to connect with what we're doing behind the scenes, and you get to do that if you become a monthly donor. You become a member of our monthly donor membership program. We have hundreds and hundreds of people that are already a part of the program, and it's the best way that you can support the work of the Israel Guys and help us ensure that we keep the content free and we can reach as many people as possible. I want to thank you guys so much for your ongoing support. We'll put a link to join the monthly donor member program in the description below. We're so grateful if you consider joining our team in that way. And now we'll get back to the rest of today's podcast.
Yeah, I was actually talking to a Jewish guy the other day, and I was talking to him about this very thing. And he said, I've got my Constitution, I got my guns. And I told him, well, sadly, around the world, that history, that didn't actually help you at all. And he said, well, we'll see. So I'm like, come on, man, wake up. What's going on? You got to get home. You got to come out here. A couple things on this deal. I just read a book called Uprooted that's about the Jews of the Middle East and how they were ethnically cleansed of all the Arab nations around Israel. Basically, from the late 1800s to the early 1900s, were completely kicked out. A few interesting things that stood out to me in this book. One is that there was Jews that had lived there since the Babylonian exile. There were 3,000 years in Persia, in North Africa, in these countries, but they were never considered the natives. They were always considered to come in later. The guys that came in later, the Muslim Arabs that settled those areas after the Jews, were considered the natives. So that was it's interesting. The only country that a Jew can be native is Israel. That's it. That's the only country that you can be native.
Can be, except the rest of the world is determined that they can be.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah. All right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the
right.
end.
In the end, it doesn't matter. This
the
is
world
the only
is
country.
Determined to take the one place away from them.
So, and a few interesting things about America here that we're looking at, and I think this is why this is really shocking. Is in that book. And also I did some research afterwards that there's no Muslim majority religious country. There's some secular Muslim countries that are nominally Muslim, but in a religious Muslim country, there's no country that's majority Muslim that has equal rights for non-Muslims. Nowhere. does that exist in an actual religious country? So that leads to the question, okay, where are we heading? We now have a Muslim mayor of New York City. This is insane. This is the biggest city in America. This really is that leads the rest of where America's going. What are we looking at? Are we looking at a future where I won't have religious freedom in America? I will be a second-class citizen as a non-Muslim.
Hasn't that ship sailed?
I mean,
really, I'm remembering the people that were peacefully protesting outside of abortion clinics being thrown in prison.
Well, that was a friend of mine.
Right.
That was a friend of mine, yeah. So 1975, we have 500,000 to 600,000 Muslims in America. 2000, we have 2.3 million 3 million Muslims in America. Today, there's 3.8 to 4.2 million Muslims. This is gaining momentum and gaining a massive amount of people that are becoming either it's migration or people becoming Muslims in America. This is dangerous. And I think we have to recognize this is not peaceful Muslims. There's not peaceful Muslims and radicalized Muslims. People talk about that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter the country. UAE, if you're not Muslim, you're second class. Egypt, Turkey, Jordan, and some of these countries are considered moderate, but yet you're second class citizen if you're not Muslim.
Right. And when you listen to Nick Fuentes, he understands the threats of Islam and their imperialist, colonialist, jihadist nature. And he sees that and he talks about it. But then when it comes to Israel, Islam doesn't, the word Islam is not summoned for a moment. Right. It's all about the Palestinians and the genocide, as if that has nothing to do with the global jihad that he's fighting against. Right. Yeah. Because he, of course, wants to create. And so that's another type of distance. Like, no, Jews are white. Jews are white. That's what all of the woke people say. Jews are white. And Fuentes, of course, says Jews aren't white. So we're not white and we're not white. Jews, go back to Israel, he says. But you can't go to Israel because you're colonialist and you stole the land. You can't be in Israel. Jews can't live. They can't live anywhere. Nothing belongs to them because the existence of the nation of Israel is a testimony to the truth of the God of Israel, to the truth of the Bible, to the truth of the Torah, and that steals their control, that steals their power, that steals their agenda. We are living as witnesses, and if we won't rise to the occasion, finally, take responsibility to the world and teach the world about the one true God and about Torah in an unapologetic way, with clarity and truth and conviction and fearlessness, then what's going to happen is the God of Israel will be revealed, but not through our mouths, but as a reflection of what's happening to us. Evil will become super clear and the goodness will be contrasted to that. So it's up to us whether God will be revealed to the world through goodness and light or by contrast with darkness. It's whether we rise to the occasion.
So there was a meme floating around the internet that I think encompassed Mamdani being elected pretty well. And it's Nefesh B'Nefesh, which is, Ari, you can tell me, that's the largest Aliyah organization, helping Jews make Aliyah, right? Back to Israel. Nefesh B'Nefesh, Employee of the Month, proudly presented to Zohran Mamdani for encouraging the most Aliyah from New York in decades. And it's got signed by Bibi Netanyahu and the Minister of Aliyah and Immigration to Israel. Obviously, it's a joke, but I also saw an AI video of Mamdani being elected, doing his election speech, and then moving out to a U-Haul rental parking lot where he is advertising for U-Hauls, right? Which I think we're going to see. But so that brings me to my question to you, Ari. What's the message to America's Jews, America's Jewish community? And maybe the question for all of us, what's the message to those who are standing with
So I think the message to American Jews, and it pains me to say this because I'm a pleaser and I don't like saying things that people don't want to hear, but it's a message that American Jews don't want to hear. And that's this fight against anti-Semitism. I love that, like the double negative fight. The fight against anti-Semitism, the fight for our rights in America. The winds of history are shifting and changing. For thousands of years, we have been praying, pleading to God, please return us to Jerusalem, return us to your holy land. He opened the gates, wings of eagles going through the sky, as the prophets have said. It's not like you have to come here and drain swamps and die of malaria. It's a beautiful country. We've been praying for it, and yet you're going to stay in Brooklyn and Miami and LA. That for a while, God said, I will send fishers, people that will go and share with you the passion and the mission and the joy of living in the land of Israel. And then I will send hunters. You think that the ingathering is just going to randomly and arbitrarily stop in America in 2025? No. This is happening because God is shifting the hearts and the minds of the nations of the world to reflexively and repulsively turn against Israel, to bring the nation of Israel home. Now is the time to pack a backpack and buy a one-way ticket. This is the time to do that. This is a losing fight if you think you're going to stay in America and fight. The winds of history are shifting. That's the end of it.
Well, I think I got something to add to that.
Yes.
Ezekiel says, 36, says that a Jew, when he's exiled from the land, profanes the name of God. But when he comes home to the land, that he actually hallows the name of God. I believe that the way to fight anti-Semitism...
He even says why. He says that the nations will look and say, how strong could be the God of Israel, that his nation, Israel, is scattered among the nations.
So for a Jew to fight anti-Semitism, they need to come home. That's the answer to fighting anti-Semitism.
Right.
Because anti-Semitism is based upon a Jew that's living outside the land. If he comes home, then that's a declaration that God's alive. And then we go, wow, the Bible's true. This is happening right in front of us.
And the truth is that Jewish nationalism, as opposed to other nationalisms in the world, is not particular. When the nation of Israel returns to the land of Israel, there's a transcendent shift in the fabric of reality that happens that brings about the building of the temple, which is going to further shift reality and empower all of the nations of the world to, instead of hating each other and wanting to murder each other and to kill each other, they will look at each other, and I believe the entire world will break out in tears and say, how could we have hated each other? We're brothers under the true God, and that we will come together, and each nation will be able to offer their unique gifts and talents for the good of greater humanity. The nationalism of Israel is really about bringing light to all of the world. And by Jews holding and not doing that and wanting to hold on to their things and not, nobody move their cheese in Miami, they're preventing that, and it's really time to come home. And I'm talking to all Jews. I'm talking to the Reform, left-wing. I don't care. Bring it here. I don't care how anti-Israel and anti-Jewish you could feel like you are. Come back home. This is the time for Jews to come home. Everybody is welcome.
So one more thing on that. Ari, is I had like a actual story that happened to me just the other day. I was out riding my Ranger out here on the mountains of Israel, and I come across this Arab jihadist. I say jihadist because
you're talking about like an ATV, right?
Yeah, my Ranger, my ATV. Yeah. I'm riding around with my children. I come across this Arab guy. He's a jihadist because he believes, and he tells me this right out. He says, this is Muslim land. And I'm like, okay. Like, this guy's just telling me this is Muslim land. He's claiming this as basically the caliphate. This is Muslim deal. And I said, okay. I said, listen, the Ottoman Empire ruled over Israel for a number of years. But since 1917, 1948, Israel has continually conquered more and more. And every war, Israel conquers more land. And then he comes back to me and says, yeah, but there's still 7 million Jews living in America. He says,
hard to argue with that, yeah.
This is not the real deal. He says, this is not the real deal. Obviously, it's not true because there's 7 million still living in America. I'm like, whoa, this is huge. Because basically he's quoting Ezekiel.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was just thinking, yeah.
He's quoting Ezekiel. He's saying that God can't be real because there's Jews not coming home. This is what this Muslim jihadist is telling me out in the field. So I tell him, I said, actually, the truth is there's more Muslims leaving and more Jews coming home every year than, and he says, you're right.
Right. And the truth is that the jihad are exporting their terrorists and their people and their ideology and their culture, even the non-terrorists. Just the what is it in Italy? I think Italians are having 1.8 children per couple, and Muslims in Italy are having 8.1. Right. We're talking just a decade and a half before Italy is just a Muslim country. Right. And so they're going physically into the diaspora and seeking to conquer jihad just through demographics and procreation all over the world.
That's right.
And that's how they spread the darkness and the subjugation that is Islam. And Israel it's doing the opposite. We need to ingather those sparks of light to the land of Israel, where that light can then shine and be magnified and illuminate all of that darkness. And so that's what we're trying to do. And they're saying, oh, it's stolen land. It's stolen land.
Right.
Well, is it really stolen land? Why do they say it's stolen land? Because the truth is so painful to them that every single war that they have launched against us, no matter how overwhelmingly outnumbered we are and how outweaponed we are victorious. And that's what I say to them.
That's right.
I think it was Yishai that first said this to me, and that's what I say. Allah is clearly with us. To say this to that Arab in the field and say, why are you standing against Allah? Every war, every time you launch against us, October 7th, and now look what's happened to the entire ring of fire by the jihad. It has been destroyed. It's not because Israel has the ability to do that. It's because your Allah is with us. What's he going to say to that? That's the only way to speak to them.
That's right.
I'm always conflicted because I'm at a point where I don't really like saying Allah, because I don't believe that Allah, a lot of people are like, they're monotheistic, we're monotheistic. It's the same God. I don't believe that that's the case.
No.
Let's say you change the word Allah with Hasatan, right? And it's Satan, and it's just a different name. I don't believe that a true connection and worship to the one true God of the world would lead to the child decapitating, rape, murder, torture, worship of death. It's like a death cult. Right. So, but nonetheless, it's saying your God that you're worshiping. That's what Eliyahu said, right? Elijah said, go worship Chemosh.
Yeah.
He wasn't saying that Chemosh is real. But anyways, that's the thought.
So I have another question. And this one might be a little more difficult to answer, but I think because we have tens of thousands of Christian Zionists who are watching and listening, it also needs answering. And that is, what is the solution for the non-Jewish community in America or around the world who are standing with the Bible and standing with the God of Abraham and standing with the Jewish people and the nation of Israel? And I think sometimes we run into people a lot that are kind of discouraged because they also see things going downhill and they see a very bleak future, but they don't even have the opportunity to. And I'm not saying that Christians should be able to, immigrate to Israel, but like what is the hope, I guess, for the community of people who are aligning themselves with Israel and the Jewish people and the God of Abraham, and they're wondering, what does the future hold for me?
Well, first of all, I think that it is reasonable for us to say, especially at this point in time where there is no benefit that anyone has for standing with Israel. It could ruin your reputation. It could ruin your friends. It could ruin your family. It could ruin your job. You could be castigated. You could be attacked for it. This is a time where it's reasonable for Israel to say, perhaps we should open the gates for those righteous of the nations that want to come and to live here. Maybe not to be full-fledged citizens within the land, or there has to be a different process for that, but to be here, for us to be a refuge for them. We're a refuge for enough fifth column jihadists that are in the Knesset that are advocating the destruction of Israel. Why can't they be? Because the prophet Zechariah says, "V'nilvu goyim rabim el Hashem b'yamahu v'hayu li la'am." And the righteous of the nations will get to a time that I believe we're in right now, where the righteous of the nations will attach themselves to the house of Israel in that day and be for me like a nation. That there's something new that is being created, and that's what I would say. I don't know if I've shared this sort of analogy before, and I hope it's not too long-winded, but there's a Rabbi Tversky. He shared a story of two doctors. They each have to perform a life-saving surgery the next day. One is praying about it, thinking about it, strategizing. What's he going to do? He does the surgery and the person dies. The other doctor doesn't really care. Oh, I do this, I'll get more money for the surgery and whatever. It takes a shot of whiskey, goes to sleep, sleeps well, does the surgery, the person lives. In the eyes of God, the doctor that gave his entire prayerful heart to save the life actually saved the life. And the doctor who didn't care is a negligent killer. The outcome of our actions is not in our hands. My message to American Christians is, do not be demoralized by the winds of history shifting so strongly that you're losing hope in the future of America, whether they'll stand with Israel. All that matters is what you do to help advocate for that. Are you doing, you look around yourself, what opportunities do you have to comfort the Jewish people, to strengthen the Jewish people, right? The Psalm said, when we return to thine, we'll be like dreamers. It says, and then the righteous of the nations will say, look at the great things God has done with you. And then Israel will say, wow, look at the great things God has done with us. In some ways that you guys are so valuable because you as Christians are able to come as a totally different religion in the mind of many Jews and say, you Jews, God is with you. When has that ever happened in history? Where one religion says to another, you're the chosen, God is with you. And it does something in the hearts of Jews that a rabbi and a Jew simply can't do. So there's a lot that American Christians can do. I think you can get more specific than that. That could have to come from you because I don't know the answer greater than that. But I would say that as from a Jewish perspective in Judea, we don't need you. We don't need anyone. Right. All we need is God. Just as Mordechai said to Esther, Revach v'hatzalah, salvation will come to the nation of Israel, but will it be through you? So we don't need Christian Zionists, but we are extending our hand in friendship to them because you have been unbelievably loyal, loving friends to us where I don't even consider you guys friends anymore. I would say I consider you like family, right? So it's not coming from a place of need. It's coming from a place of invitation and love and friendship and truth, which is a much more lofty and I think a sacred extension of a relationship there.
Well, I think I always I like to tell people, it's not about serving the Jewish people or, thinking about it as a sacrifice or I will bless Israel, bless Israel and I'll be blessed. I'll become rich if I give money to Israel, the Jewish people. That's not what it's about. It's about the opportunity to participate in the blessing that God gave to Abraham and meant for that blessing to be channeled to the entire world. It's more of your decision. It's my decision to say, I'm going to step into the story and I want a part of that blessing. I want a part of the light coming out of Zion. I want a part of the promise that God made to Abraham and to his entire descendants for the entire world. And I can choose. It's a choice because God always gives us a choice, right? It is a choice to step into that story and to be an active and willing participant. And I don't know down the road, and you might have to be careful, or you might get a flood of emails of people asking when you're going to open the visas for people non-Jews to come to Israel. And you might have to run for Knesset again. I don't know.
That is never ever going to happen.
But we'll leave that one on you, okay? But for us, the steps you can't, and you mentioned it, what people can do is they can stand, they can support, they can give, they can pray, they can come. Obviously, we offer the opportunity to volunteer in Israel. And there's a number of people I know now that come to Israel at least once a year, every year. And some of them stay 3 months every single time they come.
And people that's the window for the visa.
Exactly. And people are showing up twice a year now, 3 times a year. If I know people, if they have the resources and the time, they're coming as often as they possibly can because they're saying, whatever Israel allowed me to do, I'm going to be there.
Right.
And they're looking for opportunities. Where can I volunteer? Where can I stay? Where can I bless? Where can I serve?
It reminds me of this holy couple when I was stuck in America and I was so distraught that my family is being shot by these massive intercontinental ballistic missiles from Iran. And my greatest fear had manifested itself where I was stuck on the other side of the ocean along with tens of thousands of Israelis. There were rescue flights bringing Israeli home. By the way, the only nation in the history of the world that has rescue flights bringing their people into the war.
Into war zones. Right.
Into the war zone. And then I ended up through my friend Greg, and it was just this righteous, holy couple from South Carolina that wanted to bless Israel, move to Israel, but they said, you know what, Israel's for the Jewish people, are going to move to Cyprus with the belief that the day will come that we can bless Israel from there. And I landed in Cyprus and they took me in their boat. It was like 26 hours. People were charging 5,000 euros to Israelis that wanted to come back. They said our greatest gift, the only payment we can ask for is the honor of doing this for the children of Israel and want to come home. So it's like people are either turning against us en masse and hating us, but that righteous remnant is shining more beautifully and illuminating the whole world greater than, because right now is the time of ultimate refinement, right? There are a lot of friends, but now the ulterior motives are disappearing more and more. Were they with Israel because it was lumped in the intersectionality of conservatism and they didn't want to stand against conservatives, sound like Democrats? For those people, that's gone. You can now be a right-wing Republican and totally anti-Israel, totally kosher. Those people, it's gone. All of these ulterior motives are melting away until it's just left with, do you see morality for what it is, righteousness for what it is, God's promises for what they are. And if it's anything other than that, you're going to drift away to those who are not really with us for the right reasons. And that is part of the reason I believe God is putting humanity and America and the world through this time of refinement.
Yeah. I think on this, what do I encourage Christians to do? A Christian Zionist, number one, get educated. You need to be educated about what's happening here. Number two is align with the story. There's a story of God that's happening here. Somebody was talking to me the other day and saying, wow, you guys are doing great, amazing things here. And I said, well, really it was going to happen with or without us. Like you said, you don't need us. It was going to happen with or without us. We just decided to align with the story of God. That's really our story. Is we said, this is what God's doing in the world today. We're going to align with that. And I think for you, align with that story, get educated, and then you need to start sharing that story. You need to sit down, have coffee with somebody and say, hey, do you know what's going on in Israel right now? Because that's how the message is going to go out, is you becoming the educated, the professional. Come to Israel. Come see it for yourself. Connect to what's happening here. That's how we're going to change this ship. That's how we're going to change the direction. That's how it's going to go forward. Because sadly, most people don't know how to answer Tucker when he makes a statement. Most people don't know how to answer these questions.
Even Ted Cruz, he didn't know the verse.
Ted Cruz doesn't know. He's not educated on why I'm a Christian Zionist. He knows he's a Christian Zionist, but he's not educated on it.
He may not be educated on the verse. Correct. But he's someone that has a moral compass.
Correct.
That he can just know, even if you don't know the verse, but Tucker's like, you don't even know the verse. Haha. Right. and trying to, undermine the entire movement because someone doesn't know the exact verses. Whereas I guarantee you, Tucker Carlson does not know the verses in the Old or the New Testament himself, which would have been a great thing for Tucker to, Cruz to ask Tucker Carlson. But here's something that will be very not popular and perhaps get me in trouble, but I've seen this before. In the past, when I go to America, there have been people that have come to me and said, listen, I want you to know that we have an entire studio, like a stadium area or a special place where we have fold-up beds, 250, that if it comes to it, we can have Jews stay with us. We can hide Jews in our homes. At the beginning, I was like, what? And then I started seeing places of refuge, that these righteous of the nation see the dots being connected. They see the winds of history shifting and saying, we're ready and we're preparing to hide Jews when that time comes. And I think it's not maybe a bad idea for them to say, look what's happening in America. While we love you here, we love you and you're a blessing to America and your departure will be a curse to America. Maybe it's time for you to consider and listening to the voice of your God and going back to your land. And if you don't, we love you here and we want you to know you have a place to hide with us. That's the worst thing that an American Jew would want to hear. Yeah. Having a Christian say, when the time comes, I will hide you in my home. What are you talking about? But the fact is that all it takes is some sort of black swan event, some sort of out of the box thing to happen, an EMP detonated somewhere, something happened somewhere where all of a sudden we see the grocery shelves being emptied out. We saw it before. We saw Corona. Right? Yep. Everything, the gates were shut. Nobody could fly. There weren't diapers. There was no formula. Things like foundational things that everybody took for granted weren't there. Now with the shifting climate and the shifting sentiment towards Jews, and something happens on a global level, we see it would be immediately pointed at Israel. Even Fuentes said that. He said, Candace, stop accusing Israel of killing Charlie Kirk. If Ben Shapiro was killed, you would accuse Israel of that. He's like, there are enough great reasons to hate Jews in Israel. Don't get lost on that stuff. So if you think that the finger would not be pointed at them, and Jews are just in their bubble of comfort, and most of them don't even see it. And I don't like being that voice. I really don't. Yeah. But I feel like important. It's so heavy on my heart. It's so heavy on my heart that when I do leave this world and I stand before the creator of heaven and earth, and if I don't say it, and he says, I put this in your heart, why didn't you speak that truth? And I say, I wanted people to like me more. Mm-hmm. I wanted to not upset people. Right. That's just not going to hold water. It's just coming from a place of absolute love for Israel and the Jewish people, and really for the entire world.
I guess the last thing I'd say, and we're almost at an hour, we're not even going to get to other news stories today, but for Christian Zionists, like we're saying, you have to, right now, there's things you can do. And I think you started this segment by saying, honestly, there's no benefit to standing with Israel and the Jewish people right now. It's like a very clear choice that you are going to be hated. which is, there's a lot of reasons in that the Bible gives believers in the God of Abraham to be hated. It's not a bad thing, a bad place to find yourself in, as long as you're on the right side, as long as you're on God's side. But I guess the encouragement is down the road, the promises are with us, the Jewish
Amen.
people, and those who align themselves with the Bible. So right. There is a reward at some point. Whether the Christians could maybe come to live in Israel one day, whether it's when the Messiah comes and lands in Jerusalem, and everybody figures out who the Messiah is, right? And that, like, there is a promise by siding with the God of Abraham, with Israel, the nation of Israel, the Jewish people, which I ultimately view as God's kingdom.
Right. I'll ask you this question. From a Jewish perspective, something we don't think about often, and at least I don't think about myself ever, is heaven and hell. I don't think about it because that's not a motivation for me. I'm at a point right now in my walk with God that my reward for walking with him is that I get to be walking with him. Mm-hmm. And my punishment is that I feel distant. Al tashlicheni milfanecha, King David said. Don't cast me away from you. I just don't want to be distant. Mm-hmm. And sin is the punishment for itself. And so I would ask you this. Is it the afterlife reward that is motivating you to stand with Israel and the Jewish people? Or do you find that in this journey that you're on, the reward is in the journey itself? Honest question. There's no judgment here. Not that much.
Yeah, no, I think for most of Christianity, a lot of Christianity has a different perspective of heaven and hell and the afterlife. I'd say for myself, my journey has gotten to the point where I feel a lot more like you do, but I think I do have a motivation for a restored kingdom in Jerusalem. I do have a motivation for the temple being built, the Messiah being here, world peace. I love the passage about the nations coming up to Jerusalem to celebrate Sukkot, because to me, that's like a picture of the redemption.
But that's exactly my point, is that what did you just say? You want a restored kingdom of Jerusalem. What does that mean? That you want to create, Suli Mikdash, God says, make for me a temple that I could dwell amongst you. You want God to have a home here in this world. It's Amen. For God's name. It's for your love for God that you want. It's not that you are looking for Luke to have a place in the world to come. I didn't hear that in what you just said. You have an ulterior motive that you love God and want his name to be sanctified in the world. That's exactly. Where we come together. That's why ultimately we're not only friends, we're like brothers, because we're both walking for God. And so if we look very hard at each other exclusive to him, I'll see all these things about you, the way you believe, that are wrong and false and whatever. But if we look to him together, then we can feel each other's hearts. And that's why each one of our hearts why is the heart here? Because my heart and your heart can come together, in that way. And so that's my thought. That this isn't about reward and punishment. It's not about theological imperatives. It's about the reward given in and of itself for walking in the path of truth and righteousness and godliness.
That's right. Amen. Now, you got anything to add to that?
100%. I think it's aligning with the plan of God, aligning with the Bible. That's really what it comes down to. What is God's plan?
That's right.
And we're seeing it playing out right here on the ground.
One last thing I'll say is that Christianity for centuries has had an individual salvation ideology. The Jewish people have had a national redemption ideology. And I realize we were just talking about national redemption here, but I think it's bigger than that. I think we should actually look at this as international redemption.
Yeah.
Because Jerusalem being restored and the temple being built and God's kingdom coming to earth in Jerusalem is actually international redemption, because it's not just the Jewish people being sovereign in the land of Israel and Jerusalem being the city of praise in all the earth, but it's actually that becomes the destination and the ultimate redemption for the entire world to come up and participate in.
That's what we're chosen for. Yeah. We are chosen to bless the world. I hear Candace Owens, you're the chosen people. Everybody says, oh, Jews, you're the chosen people. You think you're the chosen people. And it's funny because Islam, Christianity, they're all saying they're the chosen people, right? And then you ask Jews and they're like, no, I'm not. I'm really not, But the truth is we are the chosen people. But what are we chosen for? We're chosen to bless humanity. We're chosen to be that vessel through which God blesses humanity, and where we are able to say to all of the children of God, God loves you. We're chosen to teach the world that they're chosen too.
That's right.
And that's why I try to bless all the time. And maybe I'll just take that opportunity to bless you guys and to bless our watchers and our listeners out there. I don't know if it's too religious, but my heart is moving me to do so. Because if you're really seeking truth in the God of Israel, then it's my honor to bless you. Because I really actually believe in my heart that as Israel, we need to start blessing everyone, meaning we need to bless Iran. We need to bless the ring of fire of jihadists. It doesn't mean that we need to back away our war on darkness and evil, but at the same time, we can bless and empower. That's difficult to do, to bless Iran, but to bless you guys, it's the easiest thing in the world. You're the greatest blessing to us, so just to bless you back. So I want to bless you and all of our listeners. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichuneka. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God bless and protect you. May he shine his light and his countenance upon you, and may he give you peace. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Well, I think this show might have the potential for the most feedback. So Ari, you better be paying attention to the comments.
Right.
And if anybody does have Ari's email address or mine or Nate's, you feel free to reach out to us on so many levels, I think. So guys, let us know what you think. And it's such an important story. And I guess the encouragement is be a part of the story, be an active participant.
That's right.
Guys, make sure you subscribe to follow along. Hopefully Jeremy and Joshua will be back next time. And as always, stop listening to the lies and propaganda and connect with the truth of what's happening in the land of Israel. We'll be back very soon here at the Israel Guys.